Hello, my dear students of 10th class. Welcome to the today's session. This week we are going to discuss on the final finish of the second chapter. Already in our previous class we were understanding on what is meant by water of crystallization. It is the number of water molecules present in the crystal of a respective ionic compound. So, how many water molecules it hold, that depends upon what? That depends upon how much space is available in the crystal, and it is a temporary. This can be removed by heating. Whenever we heat such molecules, water molecules are lost in the form of water vapor. Then after the loss of water molecule, whatever compound is left, it is dry chemical. It is a dry molecule. So under this we studied some examples including plaster of Paris. Now today we will study remaining part of the plaster of Paris. Conversion of plaster of Paris from gypsum. That means today we will understand how plaster of Paris is prepared from gypsum. First, what is gypsum? Gypsum is a CaSO4 2H2O which is used to prepare artificial manure or synthetic fertilizer. So using the gypsum we prepare a lot of fertilizers. One such use of gypsum is what? We use gypsum in the preparation of what? Plaster of Paris. How? Please see here. Plaster of Paris is obtained by heating of gypsum at about 150 degree centigrade. In chemistry, conditions are very important. At this temperature, 1.5 molecules of water is evaporated or lost and gypsum turns into POP or plaster of Paris. And using equation, we can represent like this. This is what? Gypsum, CaSO4 with the two water molecules of crystallization. When you heat it, it loses 1.5 molecules and becomes plaster of Paris. This is called what? Plaster of Paris. The formula is what? CaSO4 half H2O. So which is very uneasy to understand, but I told in the previous class that this you multiply complete formula with what? 2, so that it becomes what? 2 CaSO4 into H2O. That also is called as what? Plaster of Paris. So this is chemical equation to prepare POP from gypsum. Now let us understand what is meant by rehydration of plaster of Paris. Dehydration, loss of water. Rehydration, addition of water. Okay. What is hydration then? See, there is a difference between hydration and rehydration. Rehydration is what? When it is lost water molecules, after adding water molecules, if it regains the water molecules, that is called rehydration. Okay. When POP is rehydrated by mixing of water, it turns into gypsum, and when this gypsum left open, it starts drying after about 10 minutes, and in about 45 minutes it sets as a hard mass solid. In about 72 hours it dried completely. The unique property of quick drying and setting into solid after some hours makes plaster of Paris very useful. This is a unique property of the POP. When POP is mixed with a known amount of water, though it turns into gypsum, but it is a different form of gypsum. For example, see, diamond is a form of carbon, graphite is a form of carbon. Are they same? They are different, you know. Diamond is very hard, graphite is very soft. Both are carbon forms. It is the structure that determines the property. Here also, when we add small amount of water to the plaster of Paris, it is converting into gypsum, but a different form of gypsum. So it is becoming a hard mass. So setting hard after adding amount of water into plaster of Paris, this property is very useful in our day-to-day life, especially in the medical treatment. We learn in the next slide. Properties of plaster of Paris. POP is a white powder. like normal white powder we see, like a tuna. Mixing of water into powder plaster of Paris is exothermic. That means heat energy is given out and it becomes a hard mass. Now, some uses of plaster of Paris, POP. This is very important. POP is used in medical treatment because by adding small amount of water, it sets hard. Wherever fracture is there, wherever crack is there, especially with respect to the bones, there doctor will take the X-ray. He will find out exactly where is the fracture part, cracked part of the bones. There only he will go for plastering. Okay, I think you might have seen during games time when a particular boy falls, we take to the hospital. There he takes X-ray, then plastering for about 1 month, 2 months, depend upon the amount of fracture. That doctor will take decision. So in that case, we using what? Plaster of Paris. Molding of plaster of Paris over the part of the body after setting of bones ensures to keep bones at right place. What is the purpose of plastering? See, there is a crack is there. No? That crack should not move for about some days or some weeks. So to not to allow the movement or to make it immobile, we apply plaster on that area known as the plastering of the cracked part. POP is used for making beautiful and designer falls ceiling and other room interiors. You have seen during construction of the building, there are some people they go for the interior decoration. Okay, for that they use the POP. You might have seen some auditorium. You see the ceiling of auditorium. It is a special design is there. It is all made out of what? Plaster of Paris. Plaster of Paris is used in casting into clay molds. POP is used in making toys and other decorative materials. Ramosi Film City is full of plaster of Paris. Director and the producer will contact the Ramosi Film City and they will tell which set they want. Accordingly, the set is made, then shooting is done. Afterwards, either set is preserved or destroyed. One more set is made depending upon the requirement. So, plaster of Paris is highly useful. Now, we will see a small video on plaster of Paris so that it becomes very clear. Okay.
To know if the crystals of salts are really dry, let's perform a quick experiment. All we would need for this experiment is a burner, a test tube and a test tube holder. We would also need a few crystals of copper sulfate. Before we begin our experiment, could you tell me the color of the crystals? Yes, it's blue. The crystals look dry, don't they? But are they really dry? Let's find out. Now let's add these crystals in this dry test tube and heat it. What do you notice after some time? You notice that the color of the crystals turn grayish white. And did you observe the water droplets on the test tube? Why does this happen? It's because when copper sulfate is heated, it loses its water molecules. And that's why it turns grayish white in color. When it's dry, it's referred to as anhydrous copper sulfate. And what do you think will happen when we add water to it again? After adding water to anhydrous copper sulfate, it becomes blue again. The chemical formula for hydrated copper sulfate is CuSO4.5H2O. Yes, there are 5 water molecules you can see. This water is called the water of crystallization. Water of crystallization is the fixed number of water molecules present in one formula unit of a salt. So we can say that 5 water molecules are present in one formula unit of copper sulfate. And when heated, it loses its water molecules. Another example is that of ferrous sulfate. It has a green color due to the presence of 7 water molecules in it. So though the crystals look dry, they aren't really dry. Another salt which possesses water of crystallization is gypsum. It's a hydrated salt of calcium and its chemical formula is CaSO4.2H2O. What is it used for? When we heat gypsum at 373 Kelvin, it loses its water molecules to give us plaster of Paris. Have you heard of plaster of Paris before? Yes, it's a substance which doctors use as a support for fractured bones.
Uses.
It's also used in the construction industry and in making casts for statues, and also making designer false ceilings. Its chemical name is calcium sulfate hemihydrate, and its chemical formula is this:
Hemi for half.
CaSO4 and half a molecule of water. After addition of water, plaster of Paris is again converted into gypsum.
Hard mass.
Okay, are you wondering how we are able to see just half a water molecule here? Is that possible? It's written like this because two formula units of calcium sulfate share one water molecule.
This is one way of
And
writing.
why do you think it's called plaster of
POP.
Paris? Does it have anything to do with the city named Paris in France? Plaster of Paris was first made many years ago and has been used by ancient Egyptian and Roman civilizations. However, it wasn't used on a large scale until the 17th century, when it was required to be used in almost all the construction in Paris. In the year 1666, a fire raged across London, destroying many parts of it. In its aftermath, the King of France ordered that all walls made of wood in Paris be immediately covered with plaster as a protection against such fires. This resulted in large-scale mining of gypsum, which was available around Paris in huge quantities. Thus, during the early 18th century, Paris became the center of plaster production, and hence the name Plaster of Paris.
I think you enjoyed the video from the YouTube channel. Don't memorize. So that's why they say don't memorize, kindly understand. So thank you, my dear kids, for enjoying this today's session, and we'll discuss next chapter afterwards. Thank you very much.